What is up, YouTube fam? Back with another episode of the Seven Figure Edge. Today's episode 3, and we welcome two of my favorite marketers in the world. We have Rob and Kennedy from Email Marketing Heroes. These guys also run the Top 3% podcast called The Email Marketing Show. Their business is mostly made up of a membership and high-ticket 8-week coaching programs. They have a real practical, no BS approach to email marketing. They were given the Savviest Marketer Award at the very first Top 1 Mastermind, which is Todd Brown's Top 1 Mastermind that we are all a part of. They were given the Savviest Marketer Award, the very first one that they attended. They are the go-to experts on email marketing, and they are obsessed with how to earn more from every subscriber you have. Guys, welcome to the show. Super pumped to have you here.
That does sound good, to be fair. I would be pumped to have this. With that introduction,
I'm proud of it.
Excited.
Awesome to have you guys here. So I want to just jump right into this. And I just want to so how did you guys get into direct response marketing? Because I know you guys come from wildly different backgrounds from quote unquote traditional marketing per se. And you also incorporate a lot of the stuff that you've learned from your other ventures into the marketing world. So just curious, how did you guys actually get into the world of direct response, and then specifically email? What led you to email?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Rob and I have a background in the entertainment industry. Rob is a comedy stage hypnotist, hypnotizes people, makes them do funny things in theaters up and down the country on theater tours. I'm what in the States you guys call a mentalist. I call myself a psychological mind reader, which basically means I use skills of influencing people, statistics, persuading people to make it look a lot like I read people's minds, mostly at conferences in the UK. And again, we both do some international stuff as well. And when you do that as your job, when you think I'm going to do that as my full-time career, because hey, neither of us have actually had a job. I've never pulled a pint. I've never served a coffee. I've never done, neither of us have, right? Very strangely, we've both got parallel paths that way. But one of the things that doesn't happen is you don't go, right, I'm going to get myself a name badge that says I'm the mind reader or I'm the hypnotist. And I'm going to suddenly, as soon as I do that, I'm going to get loads of gigs and people are going to be falling over themselves to book this for an event. That doesn't happen, man. That doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. What you have to do is you have to figure out marketing. So independently, and this was kind of before we were really good friends, we both bought products from a guy you might know of. I don't know if you will know of. He was involved in GKIC for a while, called Dave D, and he had a program which was about marketing it was for magicians, but it was the closest thing we were going to get. There wasn't going to be a marketing for hypnotists with red hair or mentalists with white hair, or there wasn't anything niche enough for us. So bought that and just loved it, and then started booking gigs, and then we ended up both being two things you're not supposed to be. Two things you're definitely not supposed to be when you're an entertainer. Shameful if you are. And that is, you're not supposed to be busy, fully booked, and expensive, high-priced. You're either supposed to be cheap, doing loads of gigs, or expensive, sitting at home, telling people you're expensive, right? That's kind of how it sort of works out. We weren't those things. And so we'd sort of broken all the rules, and other entertainers, specifically hypnotists for Rob, I was helping sort of broader entertainers because I hadn't niched for whatever reason. And we both ended up with coaching programs, digital products, coaching those types of businesses through memberships, coaching, digital products, running our own conferences and stuff like that, mini conferences. And so that's how we ended up in digital marketing, selling those digital things within that niche. Then the turn to email marketing was an interesting thing, because despite what might seem obvious, most entertainers are actually introverts. They are very socially awkward. Usually their entertainment field is actually their crutch and compensation for their social inadequacies, if we're being quite honest. I feel like I'm talking to my therapist now. It's getting deep. So neither of us like getting on sales calls and making sales. Neither of us really like going out and networking and all that stuff that you're supposed to do. We booked a lot of gigs, most of our gigs, purely through email, and got confirmations through email, and cross-sold and upsold through email. So we were already kind of naturally doing this, which is kind of lucky, because like a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, somebody said to us, "Hey, will you come and speak at our marketing conference about email marketing?" We were like, "What?" And because we weren't teaching it at that point, but then we sort of we're like, "Okay, let's go do that." And that's kind of when it all sort of fell into place of like, yeah, that's okay. Let's create a membership around this, because the truth is most email marketing stinks, not just like what it looks like and what you receive. You go, God, that's awful. But also most people are dissatisfied with the results, in spite of hearing, email marketing is supposed to be the number one, by miles, the number one return on investment, sales, revenue, profit making activity you do in your business. But for most people, they haven't they haven't even scratched the surface of the money that's in the list. And one of the things I think we'll end up talking about today is there's this phrase, which is the money is in the list. That's fine. But we want to get the money out of the list, right? The money is stuck in the list. It's like a vault. We want to get the money out of the list. So yeah. So what we do is we bring together our understanding of human psychology, where, for a salesperson or a marketer, if your psychology and persuasion stuff doesn't work, what's the worst that can happen? You don't get the sale, your ROI is low, your cost per click is high, like it sucks. If Rob doesn't get it right, and he's got a theater full of 2,000 people, he's got a lot of refunds to give. He doesn't have a career anymore. That's what's on the line when you've got to get this stuff right. So we're all about applying really practical, applied psychology and understanding human beings to communicating via email.
I love that. And I love that you said that most performers are actually introverts. And so do you think that, so is it because of the context of a performance where you almost have like permission to go out and be an extrovert and put on this act, that kind of removes some of the anxiety that maybe, or I don't know if anxiety is the right word, but like maybe discomfort that you feel like when you don't necessarily have that permission, like when you're supposed to just do it naturally in an environment where you don't know anybody? Is that what it is? Like, why do you think that is?
I think there's a couple of things. First of all, you're engineering an environment where people laugh and clap at you in the best possible way, where that doesn't happen in unless you're hilariously funny in everyday life, that's not really a thing. So it's definitely that. It's definitely fact there's it forms a crutch. So I did magic before I got into hypnosis as a kid, and so I would do magic tricks because I didn't make friends all that easily. I wasn't bullied. I didn't have a horrible childhood. I had a great childhood. I was popular enough. I had enough people who were nice to me at school, but I wasn't I would look at the cool, good looking kids, when we're 11, 12, you just start to get interested in girls and stuff. And the girls will all fancy the few guys who was never me. And I was like, well, I'll learn magic tricks. That'll help. It didn't. But just so you know, if you're under 12 and you're listening to this, then just don't learn magic. No, it was a cool crutch to be able to do it. And so I think it's partly that. And there was a magician in the 1700s or something, or the 1800s, who said a magician is just an actor playing the part of a magician. And I think it's probably the truth for all entertainers. If you look at anyone who's a musician, singer, mentalist, hypnotist, magician, I think we're all actors playing a part when you get on stage. It's an amplified version of you.
And do you know what I think I like about it? Because I hate it I even hate attending events when I'm not performing. I hate going to parties if I'm not booked. I just don't go. If my friends know, if you want me at your party, you got to book me to do something. Not in a mean way, but the reason's simple. It's a real social inadequacy personally of mine, which is when I'm booked to perform, I know the rules of engagement. They're really simple. I've been paid. I've got to walk on that stage, whether you want me to or not, whether you like it or not. I'm going to walk on. I'm going to do my thing, and then I'm going to leave. And it doesn't matter whether obviously it matters whether you like it or not, but it doesn't matter whether you are in the middle of a conversation. The rules of engagement are really simple. I'm going to go on and I'm going to do it because that's what I'm hired to do. Whereas I find it really awkward when I'm sitting around with people. Like, you know, we'll be sat around in a mastermind in Orlando, like a whole bunch of us, like really good marketers, smart. Like, and one of the things that actually it's slightly different there because everyone's more welcoming than actually I thought. I thought it was gonna be more awkward than it is, truthfully. But I'm always a bit like, am I talking too much? Am I not talking enough? Am I not giving enough? Am I asking too much? Am I giving? Am I taking? Like making sure that it's that balance. And I'm a massive overthinker of all that stuff. So going, all right, have I asked enough? And that's the thing. Like every night when I went back to my room, I was like, okay, when I was talking to Paul, talking about that thing, did I give? Yeah, okay, I did. Yeah, did I take? Yeah, maybe a bit too much. Okay, tomorrow, you've used your Paul questions quota. Leave the guy alone, you know, kind of thing. Like not as extreme as that, but like that's because I'm just a massive overthinker. I want to make sure that everything's fair. So, whereas when you're booked to perform, like if you're a magician doing close-up magic tricks, which that terrifies the crap out of me. Honestly, I would never want to do that. But like, at least they know their rules of engagement. Like they're being told to go around and they're being paid to go around and interrupt people and show them amazing magic tricks. That's great. Otherwise, it's a bit like, yeah, why am I here? It's kind of tricky.
Interesting. So I totally relate to the whole idea of bringing what the influence, persuasion, and human psychology that you learn from these other avenues into now your internet marketing business, because I pretty much did the same thing. I fell into copywriting by accident. I was a sales guy. My best friend started a business, said, I need a copywriter. I can't afford a real one. You're a sales guy. You're the closest thing I've got. So I'll pay you a couple of $100 a week to write copy for me. And the thing took off, and I wound up writing over 100 sales letters in a 2-year period, got a ton of experience, a ton of wisdom, got completely burnt out, never wanted to write copy again, said, okay, I need to now become an offer owner and shift. And I thought, well, what can I talk to people about? Like, what am I qualified to talk to people about? Right. Talk about like imposter syndrome, right? I was like, who am I to ask anybody for money about anything that I know, right? What kind of knowledge do I have? And I thought, well, the only thing I kind of know anything about is this influence, persuasion, copywriting, psychology stuff that I've been now studying and gone down a rabbit hole on for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just talk to people about that stuff. Yeah. Right. And so my question to you is, so a lot of what well, let me ask you this. So how did you translate the stuff that you learned about human psychology when you're in a setting that's very interactive and face-to-face, where it's you and an audience? How did you transition that into email? Like, what kind of adjustments did you make, like in terms of like, because you're not teaching people how to communicate face-to-face or from a stage in front of it. It's a whole different dynamic, but yet the principles are there. So like give me an example of something, if you don't mind, like a psychological principle that can be applied in a face-to-face setting or a setting where you're communicating in a crowd, to a crowd of people, and that also works when you're sending an email out to 5, 10, 20,000 people.
I think there's a couple of things to it. First of all, if you look at the similarities, first of all, that you might not think are there between standing on stage in front of an audience of people and sending out a bunch of emails. Effectively, I think we tend to think of both of them incorrectly as one-way broadcast communications, right? So a performer standing on stage largely will think of this is a one-way thing. I'm broadcasting at these people. They're going to react somewhat, but generally speaking, I'm broadcasting in this direction. And generally, people think of email in exactly the same way. I've got a list of 1, 2, 100, 5,000, 100,000, however many people. I'm going to broadcast my messages at them. And there's always like, to the point that there's like a panic when you first get started and people reply to your emails. You go, oh crap, I don't know how to, does that go to my support desk? Do I have to reply to the email? Like, what, do they just get like a bounce back saying this email doesn't exist? Like, how do I even deal with people replying, right? It's one of the panics that people have in the early days. And so I think when you realize that actually neither of those things are true, right? Neither the performance on stage nor the person sending emails is actually a one-way outward communication. It's always a back and forth, a give, a take, and a push and a pull. So as a performer on stage, we're going to stand on stage and say the beginning of my show is largely scripted, and same with Kennedy, right? But That's not to say that somebody isn't going to shout out, somebody's going to heckle. Oh, we had a theme tune for our podcast.
Sorry about that. I was putting my fan on and I pressed a button and I realized it was lit. I thought, probably isn't doing anything. And then
there you go. Unexpected event, right?
There we go. That's how you do it, folks.
So I'm going to do those words to the opening of my show, but ultimately, if somebody heckles and shouts out, or if the audience don't laugh the way I expect they're going to laugh when I say one particular joke, then I go, oh my god, this is not quite gonna land the way I thought it was going to do. I'm going to have to change again. Same with Kennedy. We're going to have to change tactics slightly. It would be lunacy to stand there and just keep making the jokes that nobody's laughing at. Right, I'll try that joke again. You might get it the second time. Right, it's crazy. You have to follow the energy of the audience and then bounce based on that. And the same thing applies to emails, right? Effectively, all we largely do with emails is, first of all, remember, it's not a one-way communication. We're going to send stuff out. We're going to pay attention to what people do in response, and then we're going to behave accordingly to what their response is. If you suddenly send an email and you find that a whole bunch of metrics tank, then we're going to veer off in a different direction and change approach somewhat. So that's the first thing, is to realize that they might seem like they're poles apart, and then when you analyze them a bit more, you might go, actually, it's just a bloke or a woman stood broadcasting at people, just through different medium. And then when you actually dig into it further, you realize they are quite alike, but for the opposite reason. They're quite alike because in reality, all email marketing is really a two-way communication, in the same way that standing on stage and judging the energy of and nobody would know that better than a stand-up comedian. Say they have that even more than us. Being able to judge the energy of the audience and go back and forth. In terms of, so that's the first thing to realize, is that the underlying principle is largely the same. You're having a two-way conversation at scale, where each person in the audience or on the list feels like it's a one-on-one thing that they're part of. So for us, aside from that, there's a bunch of psychological things that we do, and they come in two places. The first place that they come is in the sort of strategy and the thinking behind what happens. So we can unpack this as we go through, because there's no way to quickly answer it as this question now. But basically, the first thing that we do is we realize that we are going to we're going to put people through a whole bunch of different campaigns and sequences and stuff that happens that is going to be specifically designed for different types of people who are in our audience. I'm going to call them the audience for now, right? In our email list, in our audience. We're going to put them through different things that appeal to different people in different mindsets. In a theater, we've got to deal with the fact, or at an event, you've got to deal with the fact you've got massive magic fans who are going to love anything vaguely magic related. They're going to love anything Kennedy does or anything I do. They're going to be all for it. Then you've got like the grumpy person who's being dragged along, didn't want to be there's never heard of you before, hates leaving the house, would rather be at home watching the football. And you've got to be able to deal with the fact that there's a large number of those people in any audience. In a list, again, you've got different people at different categories. You've got people who are like raving, ready to buy, their legs hanging off, and they just need somebody to stitch it back on. And then on the flip of that, you've got people who are like the hard customer. They're on your list because they're interested in a thing. They don't ever anticipate buying anything from you. They just opted in to get your lead magnet or to find out, their quiz result or whatever, or to register for that webinar. They are 10 seconds away from emailing saying, stop emailing me, I only wanted the lead magnet. Those people, they have to be dealt with in a very different way. So again, what we're doing is, just like you have different types of members of an audience, you have different types of subscriber on your list that you're looking to engage with. So strategically, the psychology comes in making sure that we have lots of different types of messaging to appeal to and campaigns to appeal to lots of different types of people. But then on the more granular level, and we can dig into both of these as we go through this if you want, on a more granular level, there's the sort of word by word tactics of making stuff in each individual email. I mean, making stuff sound more appealing, make it more desirable, make it the copywriting techniques that we apply to the stuff that we're going to put into the emails themselves.
Gotcha. So I have a question for you. So So two questions, really. So in a live setting, right, like you said, you have all of these different personalities there. How do you go about appealing to all of them? Do you do that like in segments, like where part one of the show will most likely to appeal to the Magic fan, and I'll say this in the 10-minute mark, which will probably appeal to the guy that doesn't want to be here. He might find that funny. Or are you reading the crowd to see, do I have the majority of this crowd are Magic fans, and so that's who I need to focus most of my energy on? Or I'm getting a reading that most of these people are not Magic fans and they got dragged here. Like, how do you gauge that and then how do you account for what direction you're going to move in?
Yeah, it's a great one. And so there is a principle that all performers, especially like solo performers, hypnotists, mind readers, stand-ups, if you've ever done any of these kind of things, like a stand-up comedy course or something like that, one of the things that you hear all the time is you'll go on stage and there'll be people there who are loving it. There could be a crowd of 50, 100 people at like a stand-up comedy club, right? Or at any gig, regardless of the size, you will have a room full of people, 200, 300, 1,000 people. If there is one person among that 1,000 people who's got their arms crossed, they've got that furrowed sort of angry brow, they've got their legs crossed, and they're just furious and hating you, that's the person you naturally keep looking at. And you end up playing the whole show to the unhappiest person who doesn't want to be there, forgoing and forgetting the 999 other people. That's what automatically happens, because we're all, as human beings, we're pleasers. We want everyone to be happy, right? And especially if you're an entertainer, you do this because you love bringing joy to people. So, and that's the same, and the same can be mirrored in an email list. We want to make sure that we cater for the majority early on, right? So similar principles apply. You want to get attention, you want to maintain attention, then you want to direct attention and get people to take action. So I want to walk on stage, I want everyone to be looking at me. I want to make sure that the first things I do appeal to the most people, because actually, have you ever been to an event, like a concert or a sporting event, something like that, where you're just not feeling it, but when you get there, everybody else is electric and it lifts you up and you go, I'm so pleased I went to that when I wasn't feeling like it. Yeah. That's the effect we can have as entertainers in this case, when instead of trying to appeal to the one person who's hating it, why we would want to appeal to the 1%? We don't want to appeal to the 1%. We want to appeal to the 99%. We want to get everybody else on board so that we get that energy and that gets going and that brings some of your 1% up. Great. You still might have some one grumpy dude. That's okay. There's something else for him, and it might be that he opts out. That can be okay. He can leave, or he can fall asleep. Or I once did a show where I was doing a presentation. I was doing a talk once, and some dude decided it was a great time with his camera on Zoom to give himself a haircut. I'm not joking. That's what he decided was important to him right then, not the amazing value bombs we were dropping. But that was pretty funny. It was during COVID, so it was like get a haircut when you can, I guess.
And I think this whole thing is reflected in the fact that a lot of people sort of panic a bit about emailing too much because they might like annoy their list and get loads of unsubscribes and stuff. And it's hard not to be affected, even at any level of business. It's hard not to be affected when somebody replies and says, you're a dick, stop it, get out of my inbox. But the truth is that he's the hard, that's the hard person that you're trying to please there, rather than going, actually, the economics of email marketing require me to just do what I'm doing, play this game that's going to work really well for me. And yes, that's going to annoy some people, but do anything at any level of scale and it's going to annoy some people. So it's a useful lesson to be able to drag over from the psychology of a performer to the psychology of an email marketer.
Gotcha. Okay. And then from an email perspective, how do you do this? So somebody comes onto your email list. How do you determine what type of personality, archetype, subscriber they are? Does that depend on how they came in the first place? So that's the first part of my question. Second part of my question is, and this is, I guess, kind of like, is like an overarching question for you guys, is, are you guys big into like intricate, sophisticated segmentation with tagging and rules, and if the person sneezes they go over here, and if they fart they go over here, and like what is your like, what do you like, tell me about your approach to that? Like, somebody comes into your email list, what's the first thing that happens to them? So what's the process they go through? So
here's an interesting thing, right? When you walk out on stage and you've got a bunch of people who don't really know what to expect, the first thing that you want to try and do is get them on side, make them laugh or make them feel something, make them emotional some way about you, make them impressed. And the good thing about doing that is that buys you a lot of freedom for the rest of the show. Like suddenly, if you go on stage and you bomb in the first 10 seconds, if you've ever watched like America's Got Talent and you see someone come out and there's that moment where they do something and all the like 3 of the judges press the buzzer, the audience are like looking at each other and rolling their eyes. Now, of course, for reality TV, that's all engineered. But when you see that happen, you know that person has an uphill struggle to turn their opinions around. Same thing happens in any performance. When it comes to email, the equivalent of that is turning somebody into a customer really quickly. So the quicker you can get out and turn them into a customer from a free subscriber into a paid customer, that buys you a lot of freedom going forward. Because the minute somebody's partly because of cognitive dissonance and various other things, the minute somebody's like paid you some money, they're going to now commit to themselves that was probably a good idea. You're probably a worthwhile investment. They should probably keep on paying attention and doing what they're doing. You get a handful of don't, and they're the ones who get buyer's remorse and ask for a refund or whatever. But for the most part, that buys you a lot of freedom. So our goal has always been to think of it as, rather than build a list of people that we could sell to one day, let's get every new subscriber, convert as many of them as possible within the first week, 2 weeks, a maximum of 60 days. The ones who don't buy in the first 60 days, if you give them a lot of opportunities and a well-structured set of campaigns to do it, those people are unlikely to. That's the people who are unlikely to ever buy. They're the people who are just going to like hover around on your list, but they're either not that interested in what you've got to say that they're going to ever buy from you. Like some people, email marketing, it's important enough for them to listen to us, but it's never important enough for them to pay money for it. Those people exist. Our job is to try and convince them they should be, but it's past a point, it's impossible. Or they're the people who are just freebie seekers who just don't buy stuff online, or they can't afford to, or they're just here to try and gather what they can, or they're competitors watching what we're doing. So our job really is to do that. Now, the way that we do it generally is that we tend to go, okay, great. In any audience of email subscribers, there's going to be a percentage of people who are just action takers, ready to buy. Their state of mind is, I've got a problem. So let me take you back a couple of years ago. We were losing $500 a day on Facebook ads, right? So over the course of a month, we're 15 grand down. By the end of month 2, we're 30 grand down. By the end of month 3, we're 45 grand down. If you teach Facebook ads and you've got a system to fix our problem, you don't have to sell us that program at all. We're coming charging towards anyone who looks like they might be a Facebook ads coach and throwing money at them in the hope that they might have a decision. They might have a solution. So what you got to realize is whatever it is that you sell and whoever you sell it to, you've got people who are exactly the same. Right now, as Kennedy would say, their leg is hanging off. They've rushed into accident and emergency, as we call it, the emergency room. And they're like, they don't need the doctor to come along and be like, right, well, what I think we should probably do is to stitch your leg back on.
Let me tell you about how I got into being a doctor.
They just know that they need their leg stitching back on, and they're going to throw the money at whoever might be able to do it. That means they're going to buy stuff from you and anyone else, and that's fine. So there's those people, and you should appeal to those people first. What most people do is they take those people who should be our priority and they kick them way down the road going, I can't be too salesy because everyone else will be annoyed. So I'll come back to those people last, at which point they've bled out and died potentially, and they're never going to buy from you. And then instead what they do is they start flirting with the people who are harder to sell to, who need a bit more encouragement by sending them random bits of content and all sorts of other stuff that largely just gets in the way. So our approach is to divide people into 5 categories of people, but largely 4, and sell to them in this order. So we have campaigns that are built to sell to the people who are just ready to buy. They need your help and they need it now. They're not even particularly buying it because they're getting it from you. They're just buying it because you might be able to help them, and they're going to buy it from anyone who looks like they might be able to help them. So there's those people. The second category of people is the people who are very interested, but they need a bit more persuading that it's probably for them, right? That it's going to work for them. So we run a content-led sales campaign where it's not sending them random bits of content for the sake of it in the hope they might buy one day, but it's sending them very targeted, very focused bits of content because it appeals to their psychology of wanting to learn a bit, raise their hand by clicking to watch a video or something like that, and then put those people into a sales sequence based on what they clicked on. So there's a little bit of segmentation there, but it's not like a million lanes on the highway all at the same time, hoping we've got them lined up. It's just us going, does this look interesting to you? If it does, great, we'll jump on that and we'll sell to you. The next step for us is the people who have an objection of some description. So they're basically saying, okay, this all sounds good, but my business is different. My audience won't do that. My life is different. I've got kids. I've got a dog. I live in this country. Like, they've got some objection that for them means they won't be able to do it. We literally just get in touch with them, like a simple 1 or 2 question multiple choice survey, say which of these seems the most. So now we're appealing to the buyer type of people who want to like stick their oar in, the buyer type who want to like have an opinion, have a dialogue about something. And then finally, the last of the 4 main buyer types that we deal with is the people who just feel this all just feels like too much of a risk. I can't invest that much money right now. I don't want to be in a monthly membership right now. Like, it just feels a bit risky and like it might not work. They're not totally convinced. Basically, we come to them with some sort of risk reversal. How can we make this more of a risk for us than it is for you? So we ran a campaign a while ago where people could get our full Black Friday campaign, like all the emails to send over Black Friday. Our guarantee in that case was, buy this now, bearing in mind at the time it was April, buy this now in April, run it in November. So never mind this 30-day money back guarantee thing. Buy it now, run it in November. If it's not that, it's $100, by the way, just to put some context on it. Buy it now, run it in November. And if you don't have the highest grossing Black Friday sales campaign you've ever had, then we'll give you the money back. This will be the highest grossing Black Friday weekend you've ever had, or just ask for your money back, even though that's like 6 months away. So we just took all the risk on board. There's no risk for them now. We've taken all the risk. And then the rest of it is just the people who are the long-term nurture crowd, the people who need some engagement, longer term engagement stuff, in which case they drop onto our general day-to-day newsletter where we'll send them emails and keep in touch with them with interesting tidbits until the time comes around where the timing just lines better for them. Right. Right now I can't buy that bungee jumping course because I'm pregnant. Like, the thing that physically no good marketing on earth is going to be able to get them over. That's what we do. And so our goal, therefore, rather than wild segmentation, which sometimes makes a difference, but most of the time doesn't, it's not that important. We largely go, okay, great. How do we position to those 5 buyer types and then put them and then run them in that order? It's the order that's going to be most profitable for you.
Yeah, and just to go through them, this is a technique that we call psych sequencing. That's what this is. It's about having taken the psychology of different pieces of your list, different types of people in your list, and having different sequences which chain together to appeal them. So I'll just give you a summary of the names of them, just so anyone who's making notes and stuff. I want to make sure that this is actionable. So your first type of person is what we call the action taker. Right. And the way you solve that is with a sales-led campaign. That's really important. The second type of person is the researcher. And that's the person who needs that content-led campaign. They go check out a bit of content. If they engage with that, we follow up with sales. The third type is what we call the contrarian. That's the person who needs their objections handling. That's the objection handling people. Then we've got the worrier, the person who is concerned about the risk. They're worried about feeling or looking foolish. They're skeptical because they've been overpromised things or whatever in the past. And we're going to give them risk reversal. So the sequencer campaign, and then you've got the final people who like need that longer term thing, okay, which what we call the befriender. They need to feel a deep, meaningful relationship. And we deal with those people through engagement campaigns. So the acronym that we use to remember each of these things is a thing we call the SCORE engine, right? And I know, Paul, we've talked about this a lot, but it's just a really simple way of remembering how to deal with each of these types of people. S in SCORE is the direct sales sequence. C in SCORE is content. O is objection handling. R is risk reversal. E is engagement. SCORE is that SCORE engine. And that means every single person who comes in, you put them through this sequence in that order, and you appeal to your highest intent people first, which means you shorten that time to get an ROI, and you also don't alienate the people who are ready to hand you cash, and you continue to appeal to all of these different psychological segments.
Awesome. Very cool. Now, let me ask you this. You said something earlier. You said that most people aren't even scratching the surface when it comes to their email list. Why do you think that is? What are they doing wrong?
Right. Let me tell you some numbers on this, right? I'll take you behind the scenes in our business. So most people, when they launch a new product, right? Let's say we're going to launch our membership, because I've got some numbers on our membership from a period, right? From last year sometime. they will show up and do like a direct sales sequence, that S and score. They'll just show up and do that, right? And they'll go, I've done my launch, boom. Some people have bought, excellent. And now I'll be quiet for a bit or offer them downsells and upsells, and, offer them something different. And they kind of cycle on like that. And the problem with like showing up, selling a thing and going away, which is what we used to do back in the day, and a lot of people do. They show up and sell a different thing every few weeks or whatever, every few days. The problem with that is for each offer, if it's your own offer, that comes with a lot of expense, doesn't it? If you think about every time you have a new offer, you need to come up with the offer, you need to come up with a big idea, you need to come up with a unique mechanism, it's a lot of work. I mean, we worked together going through the E5 accelerator, and dude, we were like there for 8 or 10 or whatever weeks it was. Like, it was intense. We were all exhausted at the end of each session. Like, it's a lot of work. Then you've got to pay or do the work yourself on creating the sales letter or the VSL. And then you've got to do all the email sequences. Every time you put a new offer out there, it's a load of work. Then you've got to pay to have the graphics done. And then you've got to deliver it. And then, you've got all these things to do every time you put a new offer. And that's not to mention actually creating the damn product you're going to deliver, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work every time you do it. Instead of doing that, we said we have to sit on our hands and we're not allowed to launch another offer. Instead, we want to dig deep into maximizing the sales of that offer to the subscribers. So when most people show up and go, ta-da, there's my sales campaign, buy my thing, I'll give you our numbers, right? We did that with our membership. And just with the sales campaign, what most people do in the period we looked up, I can't remember how long the period was, but that's irrelevant. You'll see the numbers, right? We that netted us $27,401. Not to be sniffed at. Lovely amount of money. It's definitely a good few weeks of hairdos for Rob and I, right? It's a good time. Now, what we did is we didn't just leave it there. We then added the C, the content-led campaign, and the objection, and the risk reversal, and the engagement campaign to the same subscribers about the same product. So nothing else changed, just the angle from which we were selling it. We're now selling it from a content-led angle. We're now going to sell it from a objection handling angle, a risk reversal angle, The different, and that's using this score thing. The only reason we know this, by the way, is that we didn't look it up for this. We were given a presentation at a large marketing event in Las Vegas in September last year. And Rob was like, I wonder what the numbers actually were. And we were honestly both shocked. We're like, that can't be right. It can't be right. So doing this took us from 27.5 grand, just under 27.5 grand, for the one product to the same audience. And then for that same one product to the same audience took us to $541,496.
Wow.
So but the percentage is insane. That is an 1,876% increase. Or to put it another way, not doing it, which is what most people are doing, is leaving 94% of the money on the table untapped, not in your pocket, in theirs.
Wow.
No new offer. No, and most of that's more profit. Like, let's say it cost you $5,000 to put the offer together. Okay, it was still the same $5,000 out of the 27 grand that you're gonna have to pay. So now you're like 22 grand in profit. There was no new offer created, so it's all profit.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So, and on average, how many emails are in each one of these sequences or in each one of these campaigns?
So it varies quite a lot. So our lowest number of emails in a sales campaign is like 6 emails. And then the highest number of emails in a campaign is probably, for something like this, is probably about 15 to 20. And I think, one of the big, going back to your question about, why are most people leaving most of the money on the table? It's usually because people are keeping their products a secret. Like, they're just not, they're not talking about them enough. I remember years ago, listening to a guy who coaches people to teach on camera. And he would say that if you talk with your hands quite a lot, as lots of us do, you have to like really over egg it in order for it to look good on camera, because the camera, whilst it might add 20 pounds, it also like dulls down your motions quite a lot. So if you talk with your hands quite a lot, it probably looks like you're barely moving, and therefore you lose some of the charisma and the persuasion and all that stuff. Whereas if you like really go over the top, it feels ridiculous, but it looks fine on camera. And the same thing happens.
That's a really good point, by the way. I like
Oh,
it.
there you go. See, that's a joke right there. The jokes are free, by the way. The jokes are free. They're not very good, but they are free. The thing about that is what that basically means is that if you talk about your email, if you talk about your product by email and you think, or anywhere, to be honest, it's email, social, whatever, and you think you're talking about it enough, you are definitely not. If you go so far to the point that it feels uncomfortable, then you might be getting somewhere close to what you should be talking about. And it happens for a couple of reasons. One is people don't know what you're doing. People aren't following you all that closely, right? We worked it out the other day, and during the average working day, the average person during an average working day receives an email every 4 minutes, right? So if you realize that that's happening, plus on top of the fact that every time they swipe down and refresh on Instagram, that's all changed, and every time they swipe down on TikTok, that's all changed, and then they've got Tinder over there, and and then whatever's on Netflix, and then they've got the stuff that's actually important to them, like their families, their kids, their the stuff that's going on, their finances, their credit card bill they can't quite afford, all that stuff. You realize how insignificant we really are. Now, after that motivational talk, where I've probably boosted everyone's self-esteem, I think it's important to realize that it just means you have to shout 5 times louder about your thing to get it seen. So most people just don't, at a core level, most people don't send enough emails about the thing they've got. Ultimately,
in fact, case in point, in our objection handling campaign, it's a really simple one question survey, right? Basically, in the most basic sense, right? Which is, we've been telling you about our product, so the league, email marketing membership. Why have you not joined yet? And the first option in why they can, what their reason is I don't know what it is. And the number of people who choose that, despite having been through 20-something emails, is astounding. I don't know what it is. And we're like, dude, we've been telling you for 20-something days what this damn thing is. It's the only thing we've been telling you about. And still they don't know what it is.
Interesting. So give me like just a high level of what do you say in each one of these sequences? Like, what do you say in the set? Well, so first of all, when you guys bring a subscriber in, right, do you make an offer right after they opt in? Like, do you go right to the league as soon as they opt in? You make the offer right away to ask them if they
that varies depending on the use case. So we almost always make an offer of something. A lot of the time it's like it's related to the thing that they bought in the first, like they opted in for in the first place, rather than being just generically about the league. Like our membership's called the league, for anyone who doesn't know. It's hard to talk about a membership like everything about a membership. Imagine trying to sell somebody Netflix if they've never heard of it before. It's sort of hard to do. Whereas all the time somebody will say to somebody, "Oh, have you seen Stranger Things?" And they'll go, "No, what's that?" And they go, "Oh, it's this." And you sell them Stranger Things, and they go, "Oh, great, how do I watch that?" You go, "It's on this thing called Netflix," right? So it's much easier to sell the thing than it is to sell all of the total membership. So we'll quite often like splinter out a part of it, and we'll sell that thing on the front end, or we'll give away a lead magnet related to that, and then we'll put people through a funnel of things that are strictly and heavily related to that. So yes, we'll make an offer straight away. However, whether or not they buy that stuff, they're now in our list. We'll then put them through what we call our email engine, our score email engine, for the purpose of trying to get them, for us right now, into the thing we're currently getting the best results with, into our core Rome offer, which for us is the league. So we have this thing called the Rome offer. It's basically like all roads lead to Rome. It's the one core thing you would like everyone to be in. Now, we have much higher ticket stuff than the league. We have an accelerator program, which is thousands of dollars. We have an agency, which is thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars usually. We don't sell those because for us, those are not our Rome. We don't have capacity to scale those infinitely. Ultimately, we could scale the league to a much higher level of profitability. So we do that. So it's whatever your Rome thing is. It might be a high ticket coaching program. It might be a low ticket course. It might be a membership. It might be some bridge in between. But basically, that's our thing. We put them through a welcome sequence, which is 4 days long, where we're basically saying, "Hi, this is us. This is who we are. This is why you should pay attention. Here's why it's good for you. Here's what's unique about it." And we also get to know them a bit. So we get to ask them some questions, have them reply to us, turn this into a relationship that they're expecting to continue. And then after that, then they go into our first sequence. So that's the S of score. That's the sales campaign. And we're literally saying, we have this thing called the league. You should buy it. Here's some other people who liked it. Here's what it'll do for you. Paint the transformation of it all and put them through it. That's the first one. The second one is, again, we'll strip out something that we think is an interesting piece of content to talk about. that's related to it, and we'll put them through this content-led campaign. So basically, we have a bunch of emails saying, go and check out this awesome piece of content, which is a video or something like that. And then if they go and check it out, and only if they go and check it out, then we'll say, awesome, because you checked that out, you might like this. We've got this thing. It's terrible grammar, but we call it because, therefore. It's the principle of because you looked at this thing, you might like this thing. So you looked at this thing, therefore we're going to show you this thing. But we call it because, therefore, because it sounds cool. So we do that. And then we put them through a sequence of emails basically following up on the fact they looked at the content, but they didn't buy. This is the important bit. It's the same product. It's the same thing we talked about last time, but now we're talking about it from a different angle. And loads of people buy. In fact, more people buy in our business from that campaign than the previous one. Then they go into the next, but not if you swap them round. If you swap them round, it doesn't work. You have to appeal to the rabid buyers, then the people who need a bit more persuasion. You have to.
And the reason for that is you are proving the value of it directly through the direct sales campaign.
Right.
So now when you start dressing it up and like zooming into it, they're already coming pre-framed and pre-anchored with the value from the previous campaign. So yeah, we definitely want to do the direct sales one. Again, you don't want to be the doctor in the emergency room who's like, hey, I know your leg's hanging off. Let me show you this quick video about the dangers of having your leg fall off. Dude, no, it's sew the leg up.
The other reason is that in the content-led campaign, not everyone sees the offer. If they don't click to go and watch the free video, they never even see the offer. Whereas in the sales one, we get all the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. We get all the people who are just like ready to buy. Then we go into the content one, but that one is only the offer is only seen by the people who click engage with the content. You can have as many of those in a row as you want to, just highlighting different bits of content because different people will be grabbed in by different things. After that, we literally send them our objection handling one. That's the O of score, where we say, hey, listen, we've been telling you about the league. We noticed you didn't buy it. If you just give us a bit of feedback, tell us why, that would be great. Here's a 1-question survey down below. And then based on what they do, we follow up with them and say, here's some emails that overcome your objection. And we got like a smart framework for overcoming objections. Then we put them into, as in positioning them as wrong, basically, but in the right way. Then we put them into the risk reversal campaign where literally we go, hey, listen, and this doesn't come from a stance of, this probably seems like a massive risk, so I'm going to reverse it. It's much more subtle than that. It's just, that's actually the psychology of what's happening. But it's going to be a trial, an insane guarantee that wasn't there before, a splinter thing where maybe if they don't want to buy your expensive thing or your monthly thing, they could buy a one-off thing. There's lower risk associated with buying a one-off $99 product than there is with paying $150 a month. But then we can upsell them once they've got in. They go, oh my God, these guys actually do know what they're talking about. Then we can sell them. So that is risk reversal. People just don't think of it. People think of that as a downsell or like a last ditch attempt to get some money out of them, but it's not. It's just reversing their risk. So that's kind of the process that we go through.
Okay, and the last one's engagement, right?
Yeah, and that's long-term nurture.
Yeah, I mean engagement. So basically, the thing with score as well is you can apply it in multiple places, right? So, for example, engagement could be a bunch of things. It's the long-term nurture, but also it might be, we have a campaign called the Tell Me More campaign, named after that song from Grease the musical, right? Tell me more, just as a little way of getting that stuck into your head for the rest of the day. You're welcome. But the reason it's called that is because we have a thing set up so that when someone's in our long-term nurture campaign, if somebody clicks to go and check out the league 3 times in any rolling 60-day period, we suck them out of receiving our live broadcasts and we put them into this Tell Me More campaign because they're basically the person who's visited the store 3 times, picked up the iPhone. On the first time, they're just looking to see what it is. The second time, they might have forgotten something about it. Oh, is that the right shade of blue? The third time is high intent, right? That person's thinking about it. So it's the digital automated version of the store assistant coming and going, hey, you keep looking at that. Have you got any questions that we can, is that what's stopping you from buying? So that's another form of engagement. As another type of engagement you want to look at, and it's something that I know I did a talk at Top 1 about, which was monitoring the engagement of your list to make sure they stay engaged. And monitoring people for disengaging and re-engaging them, and then getting rid of the people who have disengaged and are no longer interested in what you're doing because they're pulling down your ability to reach the people who are engaged. So engagement sort of covers quite a few bases there, and there's a few more, but we'll maybe not get into them today. But that's what you're going to be looking at.
Got it. Okay, so let me just make sure I understand this correctly. So you guys have the league. which is this gigantic suite of all these different products that you guys have, right? Now, when you bring somebody in, you splinter something out of the league, and a part of that as a lead magnet. They come in, you make them an offer immediately to get the more comprehensive version of whatever the lead magnet is based on, and that's a product that came from the league. But if they don't buy that, the follow-up on that particular product stops, and the score is really only applied to the league. So you're not sending all these emails to follow up with that first offer. Everything is going toward Rome, as you said.
Exactly. And that's a big thing. And yeah, I mean, we don't really follow up on we do it, sort of do it in different ways in different places because of how it applies. I mean, basically, the way that we deliver lead magnets, maybe this will be interesting to folks. The way we deliver lead magnets, we used to, like most people, someone opt in for a lead magnet, and we would like send them an email and go, here's the download link, and they'd, go to a page and it would be there, as a video or a PDF. We don't do that. The thing we do that adds just massive passive income and passive sales for us is we deliver all of our lead magnets inside of our members area. We call this the curious cat method, right? Because the person goes and chases down their lead magnet by logging in. Well, first of all, if a person has to go and they get a username and a password to get their free thing, think about how much you just raise the perceived value of it. They're like, what? This is different. This is special. It's in a gated area. Okay. Now the person's in the area, and we have a little GIF in the email that shows them where to get it inside the members area. But then other things are locked, and they're like, what is all of this? And they become this curious cat of clicking around, and they click on a thing that's locked, and they go to the sales page. We make sales week in, week out from people who we have never sold anything to. And they're like, you've never even tried to sell me anything. And I'm like, yep.
Amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Simple. Yeah, simple stuff. But here's another cool, amazing thing. We shared this with Rich Sheffrin the other week, and he was like, oh my God, this is, he's pretty excited about this. And it's the way we do our upsells is quite interesting. We have a way of doing upsells and upsell follow-up that is really counterintuitive, and we call it the Encore method. So when someone joins your main core program, you want to maximize the transaction value, the cart value at that point, right? So what we usually would do is someone would join the league, and then the next page would offer them another product for, say, $300, and some people would say yes, and then, of course, statistically speaking, some people would say no. Okay. What most people would do, and what we would do back in the day, would be to now send a bunch of follow-up emails going, hey, you should buy that. You should really grab that upgrade. It's going to run out soon or whatever. We don't do that. We use a bit of seeding psychology, the kind of thing that Rob uses when he's prepping the audience to begin with and seeding lots of suggestions before they even get on stage. So we use that same psychology where somebody joins the league. Think about what happens, how different this feels. Someone joins the league. The next page says, hey, do you want to buy this extra thing? Some people say yes, and the majority, statistically, will say no. Cool. We then say nothing. We don't put a timer on that. We don't even follow up until day 35. We've got them over the rebuild period, so we're not adding overwhelm. We've got them through onboarding, most of it. On day 35, we show up with an email, and this is what we call the Encore campaign. We say, hey, Paul, your new member discount, they didn't know it was a new member discount until this moment, on name of program, is going to expire in 48 hours. And there's a big timer, and now for the next 2 days, we're intensely following up, telling them that their new member discount on this thing is going to expire. What happens is there's like this echo of familiarity of, oh yeah, I knew this thing was a thing. And I was told about it when I was a new member, and my discount is going to expire. There is nothing more compelling than you taking something away. Nothing more compelling than that at all. At the end of the day, if I said, Paul, I'm at the bottom of your drive right now, outside your house, and I've got $5 for you. Do you want to come and get it? You'd be like, oh, dude, just open the door and leave it on the counter and I'm busy. Right? You'd be kind of passe about that. But if I rang you and said, Paul, dude, I've just stolen $5 out of your wallet and I'm at the bottom of your drive, you would be out of your seat and you'd be charging down the drive. Why? Because the idea of having something that is already ours taken away from us is way more compelling. So that's exactly the psychology that we're leaning into here is day 35. We're saying, hey, we're going to take this new member discount away. That converts like crazy. So a lot of the stuff we're about is not going with the traditional, like, this is what's always happened. We're often about, why are people doing that? And what's the psychology that's actually tied to that? Does it matter? And how does it reflect the truth based on actual human real psychology, not from the books, but from our experience of dealing with human beings every single day when doing these shows and doing these events? So it's quite a counterintuitive approach about stop offering more products, knuckle down on and double down on selling the one thing, simplify everything. And this kind of weird encore thing is it's unusual.
So just out of curiosity, what is that next offer? Because if the league's got everything, what is that next thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is something where, like, we might change at some point. We're probably going to change. So one of the things we're really keen on is the league is about email marketing. That's what it's about. It's the best resource about email marketing. So we're happy within the league to include email campaigns. So there's like a library of more than 40 of them. Everyone gets a new one each month. There's 2 coaching calls about email marketing every month. There's a whole software suite of stuff to make your email marketing work better, including countdowns and the thing that tracks all the clicks and how many times they click in a 60-day period. There's all this technology. There's everything to do with email marketing. So we want to make sure the upsell is related, but is not something where people go, why is that not included? That doesn't make sense. So we have to, when we constantly evaluate this whole conundrum. So the upsell at the moment is a list building course, because list building is not within email marketing for us. Email marketing is about conversion, maximum conversion of the email subscribers you've got. Our promise on the sales page for the league is at least, it actually says double, but it should be more than double your sales from your existing email subscribers without launching another offer, because that's what we're about. We're about converting what you've got. So offering a list building thing as the upsell makes sense. We might switch it out for we have a program which is about it's called Remote Control Persuasion, and it's all about how do you influence and persuade people when you're not in the same room as them, across the internet, through videos, through emails. So it's more like of a broad strokes thing rather than a specific email marketing thing. So it has to be related. It has to be solving another problem the audience has, but without them going, oh man, that should really have been included. I was expecting that to be included.
So, man, this is such good stuff. Like, you guys have given me some really good ideas about how I could apply this to my own business. Because, because what I've been doing is I have probably 50 different products, ranging from little ebooks to full-blown 20-module masterclasses, right?
Absolutely.
And I have them all in this one area, and that's my platinum membership, right? And so the way that I sell the platinum membership is I sell it usually as an upsell at one price. I've tested many different versions of it where they get access, to everything. And then I have a couple of front-end acquisition campaigns that I use to bring customers in, right? And then usually what happens is they come in buying one particular product, and then I'm going to make them offers to get other different products that are in that membership to see which ones resonate with them. But I'm always trying to get them into the platinum membership, right? But this just kind of flipped the whole thing on its head, because every week I have to think of another product to promote. Right now, granted, I have them all.
Work, man. That's so much work.
Now, granted, I have them all built out already, and all the funnels are built out. But number one, I have to come up with a schedule. I have to think of something new to promote every week. Honestly, I've told you guys this. I am not the best email marketer. Far from it, right? Honestly, it's not the best way for me to be communicating, is to just every week be promoting a new product. Like, here's what I got for you this week, and here's what I'm going to have for you next week. And so this just kind of like flipped the entire script for me, because now I'm thinking I should just turn my platinum membership into a subscription model, find ways to add more value to it, ongoing value to it each month, the same way that you guys do, and then use the score method approach to just keep getting people into the subscription. And then my next thing could be marketing, because what I teach people is influence, persuasion, communication skills. Marketing is a form of communication skills, but it's a totally different skill set. And so that could be the next thing that I offer, but after the platinum subscription. But just the way you guys approach it, and the crazy thing is how you simplified it. That's what I find. Like, I always tell people, there's no magic in complicating simple things. The magic is in simplifying the complex. And that's
where the hard work is as well. It's harder to simplify a thing, way harder. Anybody can come up with an over-engineered solution to anything. And I know we tried to implement, before we were teaching email and figure out our own way of doing stuff, we were trying to implement other people's email marketing system where there was all these like, if this, and then it goes that way, and then there's another thing that connects to that. We were like, there's a couple of problems with that. One, it's really confusing. The second problem is, if it breaks, which is easy when it's complicated, diagnosing that and figuring out the problem is really difficult. The third really big problem, mate, with the complicated thing is, you can't launch it into your system until it's complete, because it's all reliant. It's like it's all interreliant on the other bits. You have to take all 20 pieces of it, get it all, do all the work in the background while you're still doing everything else you got to do in your business before you can launch it and then see if it breaks. The whole point of the score engine method is that you could take a sales campaign. In fact, folks, if you're watching this right now, please do this. Don't build a sales sequence, a content sequence, an objection, all these sequences, and then automate it. Don't do that. Write yourself a sales sequence, launch it live to your email list, make sales today from that, and then take that, an asset you have now built, and put it into an automation. And while that's running for every new subscriber, you've already made some money out of it. You've already got paid for the time, effort, and energy and thought you put into it. Great. You feel good about that. Now it's an asset serving you every day for every new subscriber who comes through. And while that's happening, now you can be making your content sequence. And you might spend a few weeks making your content sequence, depending on how much time you've got to dedicate to that. Then you take that content sequence and you run it live to your email list. And you get paid today for the effort you just put in today. You get a bunch of money. You go, that's great. You might go in there and go, actually, that subject line didn't get many opens. I'm going to tweak that subject line. Then I'm going to put it just after the sales sequence. And now every single person, so you got paid for that, and you built an asset. You haven't wasted any energy. You haven't wasted and spent that energy on that's not going to come back. You've built an asset which compounds. And every new person who comes in goes through a sales sequence, goes through the content sequence. And while they're doing that, you're over here and you're going to make your objection handling sequence. And then what you're going to do, the pattern continues. Run it live. Then you automate it. Risk reversal sequence. Run it live. Get paid. Automate it. And now you end up getting paid in real time, and you're building an asset as you go. You can't do that with any other system. It's impossible because it's so intertwined and complicated. And if there's a problem, if one of your campaigns, we had a campaign, we were running an auto webinar, that particular campaign just stopped getting the percentage results we wanted. What did we do? We think of it like train cars. We uncoupled it, pulled that one out, joined the train together again. The train got smaller. Doesn't matter.
Amazing.
And it means you can ditch it. You can add another one in. You can add 2 content campaigns. You can have another risk reversal campaign. It can get as long and as short as you want. And as it improves, it gets longer. And as one thing stops working, you make it shorter. But it's modular. And every single thing you do in your business becomes an asset when you add it into the engine.
Amazing. This is really good stuff you guys are sharing. I'm going to just ask you a few more questions, and then I'll let you go. So being that this is the 7-Figure Edge, right? This podcast is really about the latest direct response tactics and strategies that 7 and 8-figure entrepreneurs are using to grow and scale their businesses. What's always fascinated me about you guys is that you guys got to your first 7 figures with no paid advertising. That is mind-blowing.
I'm going to correct that. I'm going to correct that. We got to 7 figures in spite of paid advertising.
In spite of losing 80 grand on paid advertising.
Even better. So give us like the high-level overview of like what did you do? Tell us what does that look like? What was that process like?
So there's a couple of things to it. The first one is the thing we've just talked about. This idea of simplifying email so that, and let's just put that into context for a second. Basically, if we stopped sending any emails out live now and we just relied on our automations, we would still have a multiple 6-figure a year business, because literally we would just drive people in the front end, which we'll talk about in a sec. They would go through our engine. Most, like 85% of people who ever buy from us do it from the engine. The rest, the other, like whatever that percentage is, just do it from the ongoing emails over time. So we would only be shaving off a small percentage of our business if we just stopped sending broadcast emails. And all we did, what would happen, it'd be a bit weird because after 60 days, we would just like disappear off the face of the earth for those subscribers. So we wouldn't do it. But like in theory. Anyway, so the first thing is simplify that so we aren't chasing our tail. So Kennedy has this great analogy, which is the idea of on all business owners' plates, right? If you imagine a plate, you've got 3 things on the plate, right? You have to market your business. You have to attract leads and customers and turn them into customers and all that stuff. You've got to deliver on your stuff. So like they buy the membership, we have to do the coaching calls. You have to, whatever your business delivers, you have to do that. And then you have to do all the crap that you don't want to do, all the other boring stuff. You have to like paperwork and accounts and meetings and things that are just come with being a business owner. So what we've done effectively is to remove the marketing bit from our plate altogether. That's just gone, because now we just drive people in and it's automated, right? We convert 85% of our customers without lifting a finger, without personally sending an individual email to anyone.
Now, let me just interrupt you real quick, because I just don't want this to slip my mind. While people are in the Score engine, are they being suppressed from your broadcast emails, or they get it? They are. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
And the way we do that, by the way, so that we don't have to worry about this suppression thing, is literally the tag that says daily emails, the label we give them in the platform that says send these people daily emails. They don't start getting it till they've completed the engine.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
So that works really easily. So that's that.
Okay. Yep.
So the rest of it, it basically came by 2 things. Number one, I was talking to my personal trainer about this yesterday because he asked me the same question. We were talking about like business and stuff weirdly because he's into Facebook ads and stuff to get clients as a PT. And he said, so without paid advertising, how did you build an audience in the first place? And we said 2 things. Number one, we had something unique to say, which is our approach to email. And then we literally started offering that out to people to be on their audience, to be put in front of their audiences, much like we have with you today, right? Mm-hmm. So we would go to people and say, we're a hypnotist and a mind reader who both have a background in comedy entertainment. We teach the psychological strategies behind converting more subscribers into customers and getting more money from the list people already have. Would you like us to come and talk in front of your audience, either on a podcast or do a guest training for like a paid community? In the first 2 years of our business, we must have done 300 maybe.
Yeah.
Podcast. If you go and Google Robin Kennedy podcast, you'll find our podcast, obviously, but you'll find this onslaught of other podcasts that we're on, hundreds of them. And then again, private guest communities and stuff. And you might think, oh, it sounds like a lot of effort. But actually, it does 2 things. One, it makes you immaculately good at talking through your frameworks. Like a lot of the frameworks we now teach didn't have names, but we came up with names just by teaching them over and over and over again, or we didn't have the perfect examples the first time, but after doing it 100 times, you've got the perfect examples. So it's a great way
of like, when we talk about finding your unique mechanism, when you sort of evaluate that, and you have to, like you say, the unique mechanism is in the product already. Well, the best way to do that, to find it, is to talk about your product, get into your product a lot, go on podcasts, give guest trainings in people's paid communities, and talk about your thing. And the unique mechanism emerges from those conversations. Like it's already in there. Like it's like chiseling the David from the piece of marble. It's in there. You're just taking away everything that's not the David, you know?
And so we also had our own podcast, but I'm not going to factor that into what made us seven figures without ads, because whilst it's been good, it's definitely like people think it's an audience growth platform. I think people think if I start a podcast, I'll attract an audience. For the most part, that's not true. For the most part, you have to build an audience and then put your podcast in front of them. And it's a really good way to serve your audience. You're growing elsewhere. But our podcast definitely grew to where it is because we were on other people's platforms and we were driving that traffic back to our stuff. And so basically, because we didn't have to work really hard on the marketing, like we built this asset once, we could now just spend the rest of it. Like the most valuable use of our time was just going around standing on stages at other people's events, either in real life or on Zoom during a pandemic or even now, or whatever, or being on podcasts or doing anything to be in front of other people's audiences where they had our audience. And because nobody else was a hypnotist and a mind reader who have a unique approach to email marketing, blah, 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 like getting the audience time is not difficult. We've got a uniquely different message from everybody else. Our approach to email marketing is very different to everybody else's. And so I would really credit most of the success to those three things: having a really good email engine, score engine that just converts subscribers into customers, having a good way for those people to get on our list. So for us, that was largely a free Facebook group and then a couple of lead magnets that we've got. And then going out and just talking in front of anyone. That, as a kid, I was that annoying kid who would pester anyone that I saw with a magic trick. We did the same thing with email marketing. Anyone who would listen to us talk about email marketing. And it's not a ton of work. Like if you're trying to, if it sounds like it is, if you do 2 of those a week and they take you an hour each, it's 2 hours a week, but you get in front of 100 audiences over the course of a year. Great. For 2 hours
Now,
a week,
you guys,
tens of thousands of targeted people.
Were you using like podcast networks to do that, or were you just like cold outreach, just going out to people?
No, this is a great discussion. So we overthink everything. So I'll give you our strategy if you want to go out and do this, because it works so well. I'll give you the strategy for finding where, but I'll also give you the strategy of what you do when you're on the podcast or on the training to get the most leads from it. Because this took lots of refining. Like, oh, we only got like 20 leads from that one. That sucked. Why? There's a lot of people on it. How do we change that? So I'll give you both pieces of that strategy because it worked so well. So how you find these places is you find an expert who is going to definitely be speaking to the same audience as you. So let's say we find Todd Brown. There's this, you probably don't know him, but he's this guy called Todd Brown. He's cool, right? So if we know that Todd speaks to the same audience as us, I'm going to be like, Todd Brown podcast interview on Google. And I'm going to find out every podcast Todd has ever been on. And I'm going to contact those podcast hosts. But not only that, I'm going to go through who their guests are. And, that host also had John Mullery on. Cool. John Mullery podcast interview. Interview with John Mullery. And then I'm going to contact all those people. And I'm going to just keep doing that and doing that and doing that. And we just brought a freelancer in, taught her the same process, had her reach out with admittedly a really quirky outreach email. We just used cold outreach, and it was like people said, even the no's were the best no's we've ever had from people saying like, it's not a fit, but they were like, it's not a fit, but I am laughing my face off. This is the best outreach email I've ever seen in my life. And we're like, great. That's fine. So as long as we can still bring joy to people, that sort of definitely appeals to us and how we like to be, rather than, that guy who DMs you on Instagram is like, hey, I noticed that your profile is, and I don't know what he says after that because I deleted it.
Yeah.
But so that's the first part. So that's how you identify them. The one thing I will say is you will get more quality leads that will convert by doing this for paid communities, because these are people who, the audience is people who've already said, I value this topic, my education so much that I'm willing to pay for it. So again, all we did is just look for memberships about digital marketing related stuff, basically. And
just on that, right? We spend a couple of hours a week probably, and it doesn't average that way. It averages that way, but sometimes it might be we did 5 hours one week and then none for a couple of weeks. But let's say we're going to do 100 of these in a year. That means we need to do 2 a week. Each one takes an hour, so we spend 2 hours a week doing it. as in doing the presentations. Like we spend now that we are starting to do Facebook ads, it takes about the same amount of time. Like it's probably not indifferent in terms of the amount of time. But the one thing that you notice is, and this is one of the tricks to getting to 7 figures from that audience, is you don't need anything like the number of people to be in your world from that audience as you do from Facebook ads. Like the conversions when somebody's seen you teach something for an hour are radically different from somebody who's seen a lead magnet or taken a quiz on Facebook. You've got a lot of hard work to do with the cool Facebook audience or any media bought audience versus doing this from, people who've just watched you teach for an hour.
Yeah. And then it comes to the structure of like the actual talk you give. So this is a really cool technique that we just came up with because, we had to make it work. We didn't have any budget for ads and stuff. We had to make these talks work. So every one we were like, how do we maximize it? So we came up with this idea of faux credibility, right? Fake credibility. And it's not credibility that's not real. That's not what this is. We're all about being very, very real. In fact, being transparent with this went really well. This is when we then lost the business and couldn't pay, a huge tax bill that our accountants messed us up about. And this is when we could, all this stuff. This faux credibility thing is at the beginning of our presentation, if we're giving a presentation, or at the beginning of an interview, if we're giving an interview on a podcast or something, we almost always, and always pretty much, we didn't do it today just because of different format and different intents and stuff, but we would, when you usually do your bit about what we've done, what we've achieved, I've achieved this, and we're the people who did that, before you get into the talk, we created this thing called faux credibility, which is actually dressing up your lead magnet as credibility. And you're going to do this at the beginning of the talk when you have the most attention. The reason most people don't find podcast interviews and guest trainings effective is because they wait till the end when the host says, where can we go find out more about you? The problem with that is that's when they have the least listeners, because not everybody makes it to the end. So what we do instead is we say, yeah, okay, cool, let's get into the presentation, or let's get into it. We'll say, we're the founders of Email Marketing Heroes. We're obsessed with email marketing. We've got, you might know us as, and then now we're going to start seeding lead magnets. We're the hosts of the podcast, The Email Marketing Show. We're also, in fact, talking about, and this is exactly what we said. This is the script. In fact, talking about email marketing once a week wasn't enough for us. That's why we started a free Facebook group called the Email Marketing Show Community, where on Facebook, every single day, we're talking about email marketing. So I know many of you are already in the group, but if you want to come and talk about this stuff afterwards, you're very welcome. Just search for the Email Marketing Show Community in the group and come and join us there. That's a lead magnet, but I'm dressing it as the credibility piece. I'm putting it in the credibility space. So if you don't have a Facebook group and you've got your free ebook, which is about XYZ weight loss thing, so you've got a free ebook and it's called the 6 Ingredients of a Weight Loss Plan. Instead of waiting until the end of the interview to tell people about that, you say, yeah, hi, I'm Paul. I'm a fitness guru. And you might know me as the host of this podcast. I'm also the author of the 5 Ingredients of every great weight loss plan, .com, give it the name of the .com. And now you've told them your lead magnet under the guise of credibility at the beginning of the interview when you've got the most viewership or listenership. That is the key. And then, of course, you mention it again at the end. The final little thing you want to do is throughout your and this takes some getting used to. And I'm going to tell you now, you're going to feel icky, toe curling, and weird doing this throughout when you're first doing it. But I promise you, if you do it, we just pushed through and did it, and now it feels natural. You will never hear us say the words, our podcast. Never. You will never hear us say the words, our membership. Ever. You will hear us say, our podcast, the Email Marketing Show, is da 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 da. Our membership, the League of Email Marketing Heroes, is da 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 da. And the way you get your mind into thinking, I'm not just name dropping all the time, and this is the little mind hack we came up with for each other, which is, Rob, when you say when you say our podcast, I want you to imagine we've got 5 podcasts and you need to clarify which one you're talking about. So when you say oh, our podcast, the Email Marketing Show, it sounds like you're just telling them which, for your personal motivation, this comes from our backgrounds as being trained actors and stuff. It's like, what's your internal motivation? My internal motivation for that is I need to clarify which podcast, which of our Facebook groups, which of our memberships. So make sure you're seeding all the way through that, because you'll naturally mention those things. Oh yeah, that's a good question. Actually, a guy the other day mentioned it in our Facebook group, the Email Marketing Show community. He was talking about, and now I'm answering the question. It just becomes natural. Like after doing it 6 times, you're like, oh, that feels cool. I'm just going to.
And it never sounds unnatural to the audience, but you just have to get yourself over it.
Yeah, that's how we did it.
Amazing. You know what's funny is I had all these questions that I was going to ask you guys, like what tactics and strategies are you using that's really working, and like what's been a game change, and like you answered all of them without me asking those questions. You answered all of them. Pretty much.
And that makes a good point. And this hasn't applied here, so I don't need to think I'm making any kind of insinuation at all. One of the things you have to do if you're going to be using that strategy about going on other people's podcasts and other people's communities to be interviewed, luckily we've not had to use this tactic here, but you have to become a great guest in spite of the host. It's really important. You have to know what you're going to say. It doesn't matter. I mean, honestly, we were doing an interview not that long ago where the guy kept asking us about our background as entertainers for like 40 minutes. And we were like, we need to talk about email marketing. Like that's our agenda. That's what kind of we need to talk about for us. So we were like, if they were asking, how do you get people's, I can't remember what the question was, but how do you get people's attention when you walk on stage? We would say, when you walk on stage, you have to grab people's attention. The same as you do in like an email, right? We are going to be great guests and give value, regardless of how good the host is at like derailing the damn thing. We're halfway through the interview, the guy's like, oh, I like that thing behind you. Why have you got a picture of this? I'm like, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of musical theater. We both are. That's why I've got a Les Mis poster behind me. And it's interesting. And then I'm straight back into email. I'm gonna bring this thing back to our agenda all the time.
Cool. Okay, last question I'm gonna ask you is, who do you guys study and why?
We study a lot of psychology stuff, so non-marketing related. So we're really nerds for like interesting psychological studies that we can take and apply to digital marketing. So like you'll often find us discussing, just if you could be a fly on the wall, you'd hear us talking about these interesting things. Like, for example, I can't credit it because I can't remember, but you'll be able to Google it and find it. There is genuinely a study that says that in testing, if they can, people conflate the size of a number with the size of the number. What I mean by that is, if you say this product is normally $197, and on the sales page it's 197.00, it's physically quite a big number, and you make it physically a large font size, and today you can get it for $37, a smaller number which doesn't have the decimal on it, so it's just the $37, not .00, and you make that smaller. There is, outside of marketing, outside of digital marketing, there is just psychological studies to show that people will see the number as dramatically bigger. Like they'll see the difference as much bigger than it actually is. And therefore, on our sales pages, if we do a discount or a flash sale or something, we always make the big number massive and have .00 on it, and it looks like a bigger number. It feels like a bigger number. So we heard that 1,000,000 years ago from a psychological study and said, great, let's do it on all our sales pages then, when applicable. So we do stuff like that. So we study a lot of like random psychology stuff where those people have no idea about applying it to digital marketing, and then we'll sit and do that. So that's definitely one thing. In terms of like marketing though,
yeah, I mean, I think the thing we're fans of is like we always try and go, who is the expert in the thing we're trying to do? So like if we're trying to do a webinar, I'm going to be like, get on a call with Joel Irway and be like, this is what we're trying to do, can you help us? And we're a huge fan of like paying our friends. Like we hire our friends. Like we've got some friends who are just huge, huge names in marketing. We just somehow befriended, or we knew them before they were huge names in marketing. And we're like, hey, we want to spend a day with you. Like when we come to Top One in June, we've got a friend. She has a huge, one of the biggest influencer brands on Instagram. She happens to be from 5-10 miles maybe away from where I live. I knew her before she started her business. And I was like, we want to spend a day with you. How much is that? She was like, it's this amount. We're going to fly from Top One after we finished down to Austin to hang out with her at her house for a day. So because she's the best in the area that we're focused on. So again, like the reason that we enrolled with Top One and in Todd's world and in your world and end up becoming friends with you is because we're like, who's the best at acquisition? Like, who is the best in the world at that? And we look around, we go, yeah, there's this Todd Brown dude. Don't know what he does. He looks like he's doing this thing. I've heard of this big idea book and started studying all that stuff. We're like, great, we need to get better acquisition because we're amazing at conversion. We can squeeze, as you've seen, money out of an email list, but acquisition's not our strength. So let's just go and study with the person who's brilliant at that. So we always feel like we should all like be studying. Our philosophy at the minute is like, we should all be studying or member of a thing which helps you with the main bits. Like you need to have an acquisition expert, whatever channel that is. If your thing's Facebook ads, then be in a Facebook ads thing. If it's being an influencer on Instagram, being an influencer, whatever that is. Then you need an email marketing bit because that sews everything together. Like everything needs that. And a conversion expert. So if you're wanting VSLs, there's a bunch of people who are really good at VSLs. If your conversion mechanism is sales calls, then because it's high ticket, be with an expert who's in that thing. So you basically we all need to be connected with 3 expertise at all times, and we just seek out the best person in that. So specifically for us, it's you guys, Todd, and all of your team to do acquisition. We really like that stuff.
Cool. And where can folks find out more about you guys? Is it just emailmarketingheroes.com?
Yeah, obviously we've got our Facebook group as well. If that is your bag, you can go search Facebook for the Email Marketing Show community. And we've got the podcast if you want to listen to Rob and I talking very irreverently and stupidly and having a good laugh and sharing really practical, insightful stuff about email marketing every week. It's just called the Email Marketing Show. It's on your podcast player. We have great guests. We've had Todd's been on the show. We've had like just John Benson's been on the show. Like we're pretty blessed with the kind of guests we bring on. We don't have many guests on the show. It's mostly us, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Cool. And what I'll do is I'll grab those links from you guys afterwards and I'll go update the description and pop them in there so people can get access to them. Amazing. And if you guys listening or when you watch this, if you are ready to join the savviest marketers in the game, including Rob and Kennedy from Email Marketing Heroes, go check out top1mastermind.com. It's a few dozen of the savviest marketers in the game doing a combined $400 million in revenue, all using in the trenches direct response tactics and strategies. So like I said, go check out top1mastermind.com. You can learn more about that. Guys, again, thank you so much for doing this. I had so much fun. Time flew by. You dropped so many nuggets. I'm going to get this thing transcribed and we're going to do something with this because there's so many nuggets in this thing that we need to get it out there in different formats to people for them to see it.
Hey, it's our pleasure, man. Thanks for asking and inviting us. Amazing.
Yeah, had a blast. And looking forward to catching up with you guys in a couple of weeks in Orlando.
Yep.
It's going to be warm.
All right, guys. Until next time, thanks again for joining us. Everybody that watched, thank you for joining us. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, folks.